I've been saying let fiction be fiction a lot as of late, but that doesn't mean there aren't profound or positive lessons we can choose to take from our favorite anime. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here. The last thing I want to come off as is a hypocrite. One of the arguments often made against anime is that fiction doesn't exist in a vacuum, that it affects people and society at large. My counter to this is that it's not the fiction's fault, it's the people's fault. There are many things that can be gained from watching fiction, exploring topics that we would never approach in reality, nor would we want to. The ability to distinguish fact from fiction is what allows fiction to be so meaningful. Thus, just because ignorant or irresponsible people could learn something harmful or negative from an anime, that doesn't mean we need to go about banning it to protect their frail minds. Doing that would kick dirt on centuries of artistic liberties and effectively censor the progress of the human race. That said, it's not like we can't learn from fiction when we choose to. Again, the key is being able to separate fact from fiction, which includes knowing what is and isn't appropriate to carry from fiction into reality. It might sound like I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too, but honestly, that's just the beauty of fiction. You can have the best of both worlds, if you're mature enough. With that out of the way, I want to counter a lot of negative things I hear about anime by focusing on the ways in which I've allowed myself to become a better person through anime. I want to relay the interpretive messages I've taken from it. This isn't to imply the creators meant to spread said messages, but rather this is merely how I choose to extrapolate on the ideas presented to me. This should be fun, but before I get started, I want to give you some quick updates. You may have noticed, but I have a new and improved merch shop through Teespring. I'm selling shirts, hoodies, tank tops, mugs, stickers, posters, and all sorts of goodies, with 3 unique OtakuDaiKun designs. There's our original character, Sarah, who is the ultimate otaku, leaving Earth itself to chill in a spaceship playing anime and games. There's the King of Nerds, an intentionally cringy portrait of me, and Ari-chan, as well as an adorable chibi daikun. If YouTube's doing its job, you should see products sampled just below this video, at least if you're on PC or mobile. Lastly, YouTube's changed how the notification bell works. If you click the bell, you'll be notified of my uploads based on YouTube's wretched algorithm. There's a good chance you'll be missing out on my videos and community updates, which include Holy Waifu Wars polls. If you want to fix that, you've got to go to your account settings and change it to all notifications, rather than personalized notifications, which are enabled by default. Thanks, YouTube. Anyway, let's get started. I want to get the most obvious one out of the way. Fate Stay Night. Artoria Pendragon's arc, from Zero through the Fate route, chronicles the King of Knights as she struggles with the state of her kingdom. The country she devoted her entire being to wound up torn apart through civil war. At first, her wish for the Holy Grail is for the chance to redo her life and avoid the events that led to her downfall. Granted, if she just let herself die, she'd have gone to a utopian paradise in the afterlife, but she resisted even that in order to address her regrets. Iskandar and Gilgamesh mock her for this. They claim a king should live without regrets or hesitation. To rule a kingdom is to live life to its fullest, to stand as a shining example that people can look up to. In comparison, Artoria is a martyr, setting aside her personal happiness to only find joy in that of her people. This is certainly noble, but their criticisms resonate when her dearest knight, Lancelot, admits she misunderstood him. Had she cared more for her own feelings, perhaps Lancelot wouldn't have turned to madness. Sadly, she continues to avoid her own happiness, instead changing her wish on the Grail so that someone else might take her place as king. It isn't until she hits a mental opponent with her new master Shiro that she is finally forced to consider her own feelings. What selfish wishes was she denying herself? Obviously, it's the life she gave up to become king. The ability to live as a normal girl, perhaps even to fall in love. She'd already lived valiantly as a king, and now she has the chance to taste the life she never got. Thanks to Shiro, she decides she no longer needs the Holy Grail, and after the war, she allows herself to properly die and reach Avalon. Stirring around this arc is a basic lesson that I keep coming back to. In order to love someone else, you must first love yourself. Artoria based her life purely on utility. She made herself a tool for her kingdom, which ironically alienated herself from it. How could she make her people happy if she didn't embrace her own happiness? Her smile was gentle, sincere even, but could ultimately only reflect what she saw. She could not radiate her own happiness, which was her greatest flaw. In love, it's important to react and observe. But for a relationship to work, both sides need to radiate that love. So yes, learn to love yourself and learn to pursue what makes life enjoyable for you. Next, I want to tackle Kara no Kyoukai. Shiki Ryogi, from the moment of her conception, was intended to succeed her family by having multiple personalities. This was imposed upon her by her family, as they were demon hunters who passed it on as a hereditary skill. Shiki's circumstances are a bit more complicated, but the truth is, she's born with quite the burden put upon her. Her male personality has an insatiable lust for murder, and yet she's raised in an era where there are few demons to slay. Her own grandfather even remarks that those who kill more than once in their lifetime are no longer human. Naturally, this messes her up. She actively avoids forming any kind of relationships with others outside her family, as she feels she'll bring harm to anyone she becomes close to. To make matters worse, there's a crazy serial killer planting corpses in such a way that she thinks she's doing the killing. She's already discarded herself as a lost cause, and yet one stubborn boy, Mikiya Kokuto, ignores all of that and believes in her. He stays by her side, even as she pushes him away, and nearly kills him. He knows she's not a killer. Even after Shiki is struck by a car, survives for years in a coma, and has to rebuild her own consciousness, Kokuto still sticks with her. Even after she does finally kill another human, he decides to carry the weight of that sin alongside her. Without Kokuto's love and support, giving her the space she needs, but never abandoning her, Shiki would likely never have overcome her murderous urges, and certainly wouldn't have embraced any semblance of a normal life. I interpret this as a few messages. It's important to see the good in people. You have the power to steer your life in the direction you choose, and love can keep you sane no matter how chaotic life gets. You can see the best in someone, even when they're at their worst. This is by no means an endorsement for staying in a broken or abusive relationship, but rather an acknowledgement that your presence in someone's life can change or heal them when they most need it. Moving on, there's Steins Gate. There are two main focuses. On the surface level, you've got the whole story of how Okabe and friends screw with time travel and wind up regretting it. Who doesn't? It carries with it a lesson of, you don't know what you have till it's gone, as the characters try to undo their meddling. That's a nice sentiment, but then you remember that if they didn't do any time traveling at all, Kurisu would still be dead, with World War III on the horizon. Oof. Perhaps a better lesson comes from Mayuri. It's safe to say she has no friggin' clue how any of this time travel stuff works. And yet she's just as much a part of the lab as everyone else. Why? Because she's an anchor for humanity. No matter how crazy things get, Mayuri is able to see what really matters and provide well-needed emotional support. As a generalized lesson, I'd say, while life is complicated, never forget what it is you value most. Kill a kill. That's right, there's a moral to be had here. The anime's pretty damn literal about the idea of clothes trying to take over humanity, but I think the clothing aspect of the story can serve as a metaphor for other things. While the life fibers are evil, it's not as though the cast stops wearing clothing altogether in the finale. Rather, it emphasizes the idea that you should never let clothes wear you. Rather, you should be wearing the clothes. This extends to the community at large. While people have judgments about fashion and evaluate each other based upon it, you should always be in control of what you wear. If you like something, then wear it. If you don't, then don't. As a broader life lesson, it's about not letting society or anyone else define you. That's your job. Death Note teaches us a valuable lesson about the justice system. Light Yagami, frustrated by the ineptitude of the police's ability to deter crime, uses the Death Note to exact his own punishment on people. It's an understandable sentiment. We often feel like our justice systems don't convict the guilty while incarcerating the innocent. And yet, Light's idea of justice is equally flawed. His ideal world would simply devolve into a land of fear, where people would be killed, not for committing crime, but by being labeled as a criminal. The lesson here is that, without guidance, even the best and brightest intentions can go awry. Code Geass. Lelouch hates his tyrannical father, blaming him for the death of his mother and the injuries of his sister. While the Britannian Empire oppresses the Japanese, Lelouch plans to overthrow his father, which sounds great, except for the fact that his entire campaign is stained in blood. Whether Lelouch's actions were for the greater good, his conquest came at a great cost, and thankfully he knows it. From the very beginning, he acknowledges that the only people who should kill are those who are prepared to be killed. In the end of the original anime, he puts this idea to practice, letting himself be killed as the grand finale of the Zero Requiem. After all, if even one innocent person is killed in the conflict he started, why should he be allowed to find happiness when they couldn't? Admittedly, the reboot film complicates this idea quite a bit, but I'm talking OG Code Geass for now. It has taught me that leadership should put themselves at stake just as much as those they lead. That is true honor. Someone who sits leisurely at their desk has no right sending others to die on their behalf. Sure, Lelouch was necessary to maintain the Black Knights. They wouldn't have succeeded without him. He was a VIP. But that still doesn't exempt him in the end. High School of the Dead. Can there really be a moral to such a story? Most definitely. The anime follows a band of teenagers and their teacher as they struggle to survive in a zombie-filled Japan. As they develop a thick skin to all the violence, they find themselves tested when a little girl is left for dead. The group risks their comfortable fan service-filled shelter, risking their safety to save her. Through this, the group reaffirms their humanity and are able to survive while knowing what's most important. They're no gods. They have no means of resolving the madness altogether, but they remain compassionate when others have fallen to primal urges. The violent ones, anyway. While I admit I struggle to follow this lesson, it is pretty important to treat others with reasonable kindness. Fullmetal Alchemist is an obvious one. Ed and Al screw up trying to resurrect their dead mother, making things even worse than they were. The children learn a valuable lesson that Shiro already knew apparently. People die when they are killed. Seriously though, FMA handles this idea much more maturely, teaching us that life is so valuable that no material goods can measure up. All the brothers are left with, after their grave mistake, is the chance to try and fix themselves and use what they've learned for the betterment of the future. In general, the entire concept of alchemy teaches us that nothing in life comes without sacrifice. It's interesting how the story plays devil's advocate to this, pointing out instances when it seems like people greedily steal and consume without anything to offer in return. In those cases, however, the characters cheating the rule are clearly miserable, reiterating that nothing truly valuable can be obtained without offering something else in return, with one distinct exception: love. Love has no quantifiable value, meaning it can be given and received unconditionally. I'm pretty sure we all benefit from this insight. Rurouni Kenshin. Kenshin Himura is a manslayer. After learning the art of killing, he sold his skills to government officials, believing he was making the world better. Problem is, he didn't know who he was killing, nor why they needed to be killed. After finding out he murdered the fiancée of a woman he loved, Kenshin finally realized that he had done truly horrible things. Similar to Lelouch, his attempt to build a better world came at a cost. In Kenshin's case, however, rather than letting himself die, he salvages the skills he has and spends his remaining years seeking redemption. He refuses to kill people, wielding a reverse blade sword, and devoting himself to bringing happiness to the community. He's allowed to find happiness when the people he killed can't, but at a certain point his death becomes something that would only bring further sadness. Thus, by living, he is still serving the greater good, as unfair as it sounds. That's actually why I don't mind Lelouch being resurrected in the films. Anyway, this taught me two things. Death is sometimes the easy way out, and criminals shouldn't be let off easy. Obviously, this is circumstantial. Many people go on to repeat their crimes, but Kenshin shows that some people can repent and redeem themselves through living a reformed life. Sadly, the fact that Kenshin is one of the few people we'd trust with this shows just how hard it can be to confide in others. Similar to Shiki and Kokuto, one of the only reasons he's able to stay human is because he has the support of Kaoru, who genuinely believes he's a good person. Anime is ridiculous, but also profound. For everything you can take offense to, you can also embrace something genuinely valuable to society. Obviously, this is not a universal phenomena. Some anime are exclusively there to be as unrealistic as possible, never for a moment implying people should repeat what they see outside of a fictional or ideological context. Watch responsibly, y'all. That said, I feel I've only covered the surface of how many meaningful lessons we can take from anime. Thus, I leave the opportunity for you all to expand my list in the comments. I look forward to learning even more from your experiences. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and most of all, smashing that notification bell as if it were your waifu. That way you'll never miss out on all of my anime content, lore videos, live streams, and Holy Waifu Wars polls. My vids are struggling to get featured, so that bell is absolutely critical. If you want to support me directly, check out my Patreon, or consider donating via Super Chat. And as always, celebrate your fandom.